Okay, so welcome back to the channel, everyone. Hope everyone is doing really well. My name's Simon. This is the EV Side, and on this week's episode, I'm joined by James. So, James, do you just want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, yeah, of course. I'm James. I run a website called I3Guide.com, and I have a Twitter handle, BMW I3Guide. And I've been driving i3s since 2013, and I'm just on the internet and available to help anyone who's got an i3 and has questions.
Perfect. So, on this episode, what we're going to try and do is offer either new i3 owners or potential new i3 owners, or even existing ones that may not know some of top 10 tips for the BMW i3. So we'll get into that, and if you obviously do like this episode, don't forget to click that subscribe icon somewhere around here, the bell to notify for any new videos. Check out Patreon. All that good stuff will be in the comments below, so do all that sort of stuff afterwards. Don't worry about it now. So first one then. So you know, the i3 can have lots of things that it's quite a modern, even now from since when it came out. It hasn't changed much, and the design hasn't really changed much. But there's some really interesting features within the i3. So the first one is, like, can you set up scheduled charging for the i3? I.e., you know, I've got an i3. It's sitting on the driveway. What do I do in terms of charging? Should I be out there all the time charging this car?
Well, there's a little acronym, ABC, and it stands for always be charging. And if you can, always be plugged in. Try and charge your car or keep it charged up as full as possible all the time. That's my advice. It just means you're always ready to go if you need any long distance driving to be done. You don't want to set off with half your range or anything like that. So that's my method anyway, and I think that's most other EV drivers' methods. In terms of scheduling, it's easy to do. You can do that within the car. The car itself has a scheduling application built into the settings. And if you have a charger, like an OMI charger that has an app related to fitted to it or works with it, I mean, then you can schedule the charging through the lead or through the system. Even I think Anderson, a friend of mine's got an Anderson charger unit. You can do that too. So if you plug it in, and that works. So if you don't have one of those and you've just got like a standard charger, or you're just linked to a granny charger, then you can schedule your charging. And scheduling charging is really important for getting good tariffs. So as everyone knows, of course, there are good energy tariffs that for cheap electricity at night. And one of the ones that everyone is familiar with at the moment, they're talked about a lot, is Octopus.
Yes. And
you can get 5p per kilowatt hour. And so you schedule charging at 4:30 in the morning. 12:30 at night until 4:30 in the morning. And so I do that in my car because I don't have a charging cable that links to an app. So I mean, I can do that through the app for my car, but I've just got it set manually in the settings in the car. And obviously, when you're in the car, it's an easy place to go to do it. So to do it, it's simple. In your menu, go to vehicle settings, and then go to scroll along until you find, or scroll down until you find planned charging or planned charging, and then click into that, and then you'll see a set of menus down the page, and you'll select charge for departure, and then you set your times. And I always set them like 1 minute late after the charging tariff begins, and then 1 minute just before it ends. I'm sure it's fine because I think the i3. Yeah, exactly. So I think the i3 is, it's clocked. I mean, you can manually clock it, but its auto clock is set to I don't know, a BMW server. So the time is absolutely perfect. Okay. It's all good.
German.
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to be perfect, isn't it? Yeah. So what the benefits of doing that? Do you get any benefits? So if you've set your charge time, you set it to finish at, say, 5 in the morning. You're due to go to work at 6 in the morning. Mm-hmm. What benefits does that bring an EV driver if you've already charged your car? Is there anything else apart from your car's full You know, what about like heating up the car or heating up the battery, for instance?
Yeah, slightly different. And in the i3 setting, that's another little checkbox that you need to tick. So underneath plan charging, when you've set your times and you're happy with that, you'll see another checkbox, and that will say precondition. I think it says precondition. It'll say precondition before departure or for departure. And then you check that checkbox, and then you set in another time. Now, what will happen is, obviously, while you're charging your car, if you have preconditioning running, then you're not going to probably get a full charge if you haven't completed the charge. So it's always best to set it just after you charge. So set preconditioning to start it. Well, you don't actually set it to start at a time. You set it to depart at a time. And for me, I mean, I leave at 5:07 in the morning, pretty much every day. Well, weekdays. And so I'll set my departure time in the winter, really, because that's when it's cold. So when we're sort of expecting temperatures below, I don't know, 5 degrees Celsius or even minus figures, of course, then it's good to set a departure time. So that does two things. Firstly, it will warm the cabin. And that doesn't take much energy to do that. Obviously, it takes some, but it doesn't take much to do that. The other thing it does is precondition the battery. Now, a lot of people think preconditioning is, a 15-minute, half an hour job where the cabin's warm, so the battery must be warm, and that's not the case. So you need at least 2 hours to to precondition the battery. So it wants you, as long as you're plugged in, that is, because if you're not plugged in, it won't precondition the battery at all. It'll warm the cabin, but it won't precondition the battery. And so a battery needs to get up to an optimum temperature, which is about 20 degrees Celsius, and then you've got the full range then of the battery. Anything lower than that, I mean, it's fine around 15. If it goes down towards 10, then you're starting to see some drop off in range. And if it goes into crazy minus figures, like sometimes you see in Norway, it's like minus 15, 20, then you're going to see a big change in the battery, in the range of batteries.
I've certainly found that at the moment, because it's been in England, it's been pretty chilly. I would say, it's hit down to sort of 0, 1 degrees. And when I've preconditioned it at work, when I'm plugged in at work, not only obviously you have the benefit of getting into a defrosted Windows, so it's nice and clear, and you automatically engage smug face to everyone else that is scoping their windows. Like you said, the cabin's warm and the battery's warmed up, and I found that you get near on the range that it says, rather than the reduced if you don't precondition it.
Right, exactly. Yeah, the advertised range. So I mean, I drive a 94 amp hour i3. I don't have the 120 amp hour yet, but I'm sure I will get that soon. And just for a rule of thumb, and this is a good rule of thumb for this particular model of car, each one of the 4 bars underneath the display, if the battery's nicely preconditioned, doesn't have to be 20 degrees Celsius, but it's a good temperature outside. I would say each of those bars, if you drive the car carefully, is about 40 miles. Now, that does sound a lot, but what I'm suggesting here is that use that as a rule of thumb. If you're light on the accelerator and you drive in Eco mode, not Eco Pro Plus, but just Eco Pro mode or something like that, then you're going to extend your range just by driving carefully. And so perhaps just call it everyday driving conditions, 40 miles will set for each bar. And I say this because the GOM, as it's kind of known, a guessometer, it will show you your range. And so some days you'll see your range low and you'll say to yourself, I thought I was preconditioned, or it just seems low for some reason. I'm sort of like seeing, I don't know, maybe like a fifth less than I would normally have. And when in that sort of situation, it's very easy to panic and think, there's something wrong with the car, or I'm not going to make my trip or my journey. The idea really then is just to kind of like have faith in the car. It will be okay, because when you start driving, your battery will actually warm up, because the coolant system uses the heat from the motor. And if you have a heat pump too, that will work. I think most i3s do now. There was a heat pump, and that will begin to warm the circulation, the fluids around the battery. So as you're driving, the battery will warm up, just like an engine warms up in a regular car. Your battery will warm up. It's just if you jump into your car after it's been sat there for a few hours and it's in the cold, that's when you notice the range.
One of the things, and this could just be me, but like what I found is that if I'm going on one day and I'm going down the motorway at say 65, 70, and the next day I'm going country lanes, 40 miles an hour, whatever there, and then the next day I do 40 in country lanes, the car almost works out that you're doing lower driving speeds and adjusts your GOM accordingly. So it says, right, okay, you're not doing the fast speeds that you were before. You're more likely what you were doing yesterday, and that kind of GOM kind of levels out a little bit. Yeah,
they will do. I mean, a good example is I remember driving up to York, and I stopped three times, mostly for just for a comfort break.
Yeah.
And I was doing 70, 72, and I didn't want to push it. And obviously, you don't push it much further than that, faster than that. But I didn't want to push it. And what I noticed that when I started to drive around and when I was visiting friends and so on up in York, I seemed to have an insanely large amount of range.
Yes.
Showing like 160 miles. I was like, this is very strange. But I knew that that would eventually kind of go back down to its normal level again. And that's where this kind of rule of thumb that I always kind of like relied upon, these bars. Now, of course, that rule of thumb will change per person, because someone might have a slightly heavier foot or enjoy driving it quickly. Acceleration is fun. So you might have your own rule of thumb, but you can work it out. You can sort of see if you reset your mileometer, which is a little button. It's not very obvious, but it's a little button just on the odometer, just on the left-hand side. You'll find if you just run your hand down the side of the speedometer, you reset the distance and just see how far you get on one bar, just normal driving, and that will tell you roughly how you drive, what you are, and then you'll know that each of those bars is whatever those miles are. It's quite comforting.
Yeah, definitely. I've definitely done the same as well. So that takes us nicely on to point 3 or tip 3: charging speed and connectors to use then for the i3. So there's usually two types, AC and DC, and the i3 is equipped with both. So let's start with the speeds. What speeds can the i3 charge at?
So the i3 is only designed to charge on AC up to 11 kilowatts. It won't do 22 kilowatts because 22 kilowatts is 3-phase, and the car isn't built for 3-phase on AC as such. So that's the maximum you're going to get with that. I would advise for battery health to have if you're not motorway driving and you're just around and about driving or charging at home, then I would set the charging speeds there's 3 charging speeds. It's low, reduced, and maximum. And the default setting from BMW is reduced, and I would keep it on reduced. I switch it to maximum when I'm on motorway journeys because I want a very quick AC charge if I don't get DC. Yeah. Those settings don't affect DC. That's separate. And DC is, everyone knows, is 50 kilowatt on the i3. You'd be lucky to get 50 kilowatt. I've never seen it charge up to 50 kilowatt. I've seen like 48, 49 kilowatt. But
even at the grid serve the other day, that was about 48, which is probably the highest I've seen.
Yeah, I've seen 49.
That was on a 90 kilowatt charger though. So
right, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, of course. Yeah. So you plug it in, you think you've got 90 kilowatt charger. You think you're going to get 90 kilowatts? No,
it doesn't work like that.
50. Yeah, but going back to AC. Sorry, going back to AC. You've got your fast charger, which is up to 11 kilowatts on motorway services. Then your home charger is 7.4 kilowatt, and then you can go down to the 3-pin plug, which can take you up to a maximum of 13 amps, which is it's slow. But I did a poll on Twitter, and I discovered, to my surprise, that a lot of people charge using the 3-pin plug because it's an overnight charge. Yeah,
I suppose, because it was 12, 13 hours, something like that, is it?
It's 10 hours on the 94 amp hour, and yeah, you're right. It probably would be more on the 120 amp hour, maybe as much as
But
15.
if you're coming home at 6, you're plugging in, and you're leaving after 6 the next day, and it saves you buying a charger and having it fitted and everything else. Or if you don't
Exactly.
have if you can't for some reason as well,
Yeah,
presumably.
yeah. And a lot of people see these big figures, 15 hours and 10 hours, and they're like, but you won't have depleted your battery.
Yeah, and you won't be sitting there like just
Yeah,
holding the plug.
yeah, you'll be indoors watching TV and going to bed.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, so you won't even be thinking about it. And it's like, as I say to people, it's like people got used to charging mobile phones. I remember in the 90s when I had my first phone. I don't know when it was, 97, something like that, 96 maybe. And I remember forgetting to charge it occasionally, and my friends would be, what the hell,
And then you plug it in overnight, don't you?
You just plug it. You just don't even think about it now. I mean, imagine one day if they have inductive charging, so you just roll over a pad. You just won't even think about it. You just park the car where your pad is and go indoors.
And I did see that was actually possible on the i3, but there's a connector or something that somebody built that you basically attach to the bottom of the car, and then there's a pad on the floor, and it's meant to do that. I don't know how long that would take though, but
yeah, it would. I don't actually know the full ins and outs of it, and in terms of like how many kilowatts you would need to run through that to get it to charge. But I did hear that there's about a 12% loss of electricity.
Yeah,
so it's not perfect because you're not plugged in. It's like electricity over the air. So
yeah. And how about connectors then? So you obviously have AC and DC, but they have different connectors. So if those that don't know, and you're the first, and I've like you probably heard horror stories with people buying an EV, not being told how to charge or anything, and go to a motorway service station and go, what are all these different types of plugs? What one do I use?
Absolutely right. So that's exactly what I experienced, and this is no disrespect at all to BMW. They gave me an amazing service. It's just because they didn't know themselves. The car was so new in 2013. They told me I could plug in at home on a 3-pin. I did for a while, and then I went and bought their wall box because there weren't obviously many. I mean, there were charger units around, but of course I didn't really know what was available at the time. There's so little on the internet in those days. And so I got a wall box and had that fitted, and that was great. So you have what are called tethered cables on, say, for example, your home wall box. Or when you go out into the public, there'll be a tethered cable, a bit like a fuel pump. It's tethered. You don't bring your own fuel pump to the petrol station. And then screw it into the nozzle. You simply use those tethered cables and you plug them into your car, and that's a sort of gap and go thing. But you can also buy, and I don't know if BMW. I don't think they sell them. Sorry, I don't think they come with the car. I think you have to buy them separately. But you can buy untethered cables, and they're known as Type 2 cables, and they are not. And for the technical term, they're Menekes cables. And for the i3, you just need a 16 amp cable. That's all you need. Don't go out and buy a 32 amp. You won't need it because 32 amp will be for 3-phase, and you won't get the full 22 kilowatt that you provide. But for other cars, I don't know, like the Polestar or any other car like that, then yes, definitely that car can do 3-phase. It's fine. So it can do 22 kilowatt. So you just need a 16 amp untethered cable, and they cost about 120 quid, sometimes cheaper, different lengths as well. I always go for a longer one in case, I need to pull the cable a little bit further than I need to because I can't quite get close to the charge.
Stretch it over somebody's car.
Exactly. Some combustion cars parked there and you want to get it. So you use those types of cables on fast charging units. So you'll probably see them dotted around in various car parks or on the side of the road. I mean, typical brands are like PodPoint and Polar. I think they're called Pulse now or something.
Yes, BP Pulse.
And so you'll see those, and so you'll need an untethered cable for that, and you keep that in your front, in the front. Yeah. And then of course you have your Type 1 cable, which is your 3-pin home cable. It goes into a 3-pin plug in the wall.
And that's commonly known as a granny charger.
Yeah, I don't know why it's called a granny charger.
No,
I think it's just a name came about and it just sort of stuck. It wasn't a name
old and frail, or
maybe that's what it is. Yeah. So yeah, the granny charger, and yeah, it's slow, but you know, and as I discovered, so many people use them. I was so
that's
surprised.
surprising.
Yeah, really surprised. And so if you have your car set, then there's three settings I mentioned earlier. There was low, reduced, and maximum. If you have it on a low setting, then you really do notice that it's down. I think it's something like I think it's like 3 amps, and then the reduced setting is 9 amps or something like 8.75 amps, but 9 amps, and then the maximum setting is up to 12 amps. But I think the highest anyone's ever seen it or recorded it is like 11.8 amps. It won't get to the full 13. Don't know why. It's a little safety mechanism in there, I think.
Yeah.
So if you're charging on a granny charger, then just stick your setting in your car up to maximum, and then charge on that.
And I will say from experience, if you're going to charge your car from a caravan, if you're on holiday, you set that charge to right down to the lowest setting.
Right. So you pop all your fuses.
Yeah. So it was somebody else's caravan we're staying in, so I thought I better not set fire to the caravan.
Yeah, that's thoughtful. That's good.
Yeah, you know, I didn't want it to stay there as well because I was charging on the first day. I was like, wonder what's going to happen here. I better set that really low.
Yeah, good idea. I think they'll be pleased that you did that.
Yeah. So obviously a lot of the journeys I do, and I've recently had to change tires, which I'm happy to say doesn't happen very often. Even with I'm now at 43,000 miles in about 3 years.
Right. Yeah. Right.
So you know it's pretty good. The brake pads are still the same as they were new, so that's even better. So what kind of tires do we put on the i3? Because they're not exactly the normal types, are they?
No, they're not. No. So I mean, I would say if you have like a 60 amp hour, 94 amp hour, then I would stick with the OEM tires, which are Bridgestone, and they're Ecopia EP600 or EP500, I think they were on the 60 amp hour. And so the front tires are slightly narrower than the back tires, even on the i3. So the front tires, and you know, on the rim of a tire, you'll see the set of numbers. You'll see a large number, which is on the i3 on the front tire is 155. Yep. Then you'll see another number which is 70, which is the ratio between the width of the tire and the wall of the tire. And then you'll see the radius of the tire, which is 19 inch, unless you've gone for the 20-inch alloys on the 60 amp hour or the 94 amp hour, which you can do. But the rear tires are slightly wider, so they're not 155, they're 175. So you've got to make sure you've got the wider tires on the back. I know people have winter wheel sets and they keep them at home. And I remember chatting to one guy who actually had his rear tires on his front. And I was quite surprised by that. So, you know, just bear that in mind. And obviously the rear tires for better grip, because it's a rear-wheel drive car, so they're slightly wider for that reason. Now on the i3S, so not the one, not just saying the 120 amp hour, but the i3S, which is the 120 amp hour S, they're wider at the front and much wider at the back. So they're 170.
It's more planted, isn't it?
That's right. And it's just 20-inch standard as well. So they're 175 at the front and 195 at the back. So they look a bit, if you're following an i3S, they look a bit more respectable. They don't look like tiny little skinny tires that you see when you follow a 94 amp hour. But that kind of brings me on to a really interesting little topic that I see people talking about with the i3 tires, that they do look skinny.
Yes.
And there's a really good reason for that. Obviously, it's for aerodynamics. And it's not to say that they're skinny and they're dangerous. That's totally not true. And the reason for that is that the diameter of the whole tire, if you look at it, they're big wheels. This enormous diameter means, and obviously you have to try and visualize this if you can, but it means that there's more contact patch on the ground than you'd think.
Yeah.
So what I mean by that is that it's the amount of rubber that's touching the road. So they look skinny, but they're bigger than normal 15-inch or 16-inch car wheels that you see on most cars. And it's the equivalent contact patch as a Mini One.
Yes.
So,
that's good.
So even if you were to do a test and drive it over a piece of paper, and you compare the two, they'd be pretty much the same, depending on how you inflated your tires.
Yeah. That's good. I mean, the other tip I found as well quite recently, because I use a lot of companies that come out and do your tires where you live.
Right.
So e-tires, black circles, all those type of stuff. I've noticed that if you're not careful and you don't know what kind of tires, like you've just specified, that they will almost say it looks like you need the same tires on all of the wheels, and obviously that's not the case. So if you are using those sort of apps, it will almost try and force you down using the smaller tires across all four. And I had that at one point, and they come out and was like, no, look, the rears are bigger, and they do. So it's probably just one for people to look out for.
Yeah, I mean, you just look at the numbers on the old tire, just read those back to just remember which wheel they came from, and just read them back when you order them.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I've had a few punctures in the whole 7 years I've been driving i3s, and I've always ordered the tires online. I've forgotten the name of the company now. Ordered them online, just have them delivered to the garage that I'm going to have them fitted in.
Yeah, just makes sense, doesn't it?
It's just easy, and it's cheaper to do that too, because obviously the garage will want to, and rightly so, want to make a little markup on the tires. Yeah. So quick fit, obviously, they're a good one. But the i3 has been around for such a long time now. I imagine it'll keep going as well for at least another 4 or 5 years. I think BMW is starting to realise that they're actually becoming more popular, and they're going to keep making it.
It's a good car.
Yeah.
Who knew?
But, yeah, exactly. Yeah, right, exactly. And so, I think more and more garages are used to seeing them now, and they're not. I mean, when I first rocked up with a puncher, they were like, "Oh, blimey! Don't know if you get a tyre for that around here."
Yeah,
so
I found that
online.
I think when I even 3 years ago when I first got mine, and I changed two just because they were wearing out from the previous person, and at the time I used e-tires, and actually they only had 2 types or 2 makes, whereas now there's 5 or 6 that you can get. So like you said, they're becoming more popular, and like they're realizing that they need to stock those sort of tires because more people have those cars.
Yeah, great. Yeah, of course. And then you can also go for winter tires too, which will actually save you wear and tear on your summer tires. It just makes them last half as longer again. And I've got a set of Blizzak LM 500 winter wheel set, and they're great. They're really good, and they're a softer rubber compound. And when you get them on for the first time, the car is so much quieter. You're like, wow, I just want to drive with these on the whole time, but you don't, of course, And then, of course, if you're in really wet, snowy or wet conditions, like if you're in Norway or another country, then they have their own Nokian. I think I'll get this right. Hakkapeliitta tires. I think I got that right. I don't know. Someone correct me.
Comments in the below if you got it right.
Yeah. And they're brilliant. But we just don't need them. It's okay to have them, of course, in this country, but we just don't need them. I think that's like more expensive.
Minimum amount of months, isn't it, that we actually have really snowy weather and stuff like that.
It's like January to February, isn't it? Something like that. That we have the worst weather here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So on the journeys, obviously we all like to listen to a bit of music or radio and things like that. So what kind of entertainment options does let's take the i3 that you've currently got then. What options do you have in there?
Okay, obviously radio, but I have a little flash drive that I plug in. Well, basically by your elbow, there's that little center console and a little bin in there, and you'll notice the little cigarette socket, the cigarette lighter socket down there, and then next to it is a little USB port. And so I've got FLAC files. You can use MP3, of course, and I have a little. I say little. There's a lot of songs on it, and I plug that in, and then I can access that on the menu, and I can pull it up, and it has most of the songs now. They have I've managed to get images on them, so nice little image pops up on the screen next to your music. Excellent. But the other thing you can do, of course, is you can link your phone to it over Bluetooth. Yes. So if you've got Spotify on your phone, you can Bluetooth tether your phone to the car, and then you access your phone in the menu, and then Spotify, and then of course you've got all of Spotify, to access there, and that's great. And I have seen, which has been very interesting, I have seen Apple CarPlay being installed on the i3, and that's not something you could probably do yourself because there's a little bit of software to it, and it's a little bit of installing to do. But the trick really would be to go and find someone online or an expert. And there are people I've seen online that will do it. You may have to drive somewhere to get it fitted. It's not like a long process. They won't leave the car overnight or anything like that. It's just a couple of hours or even less than that. And one gentleman on Twitter, he kind of I asked him if he could just like talk me through it roughly, and he explained a little bit as much as he knew had happened. And it looked really good. When we first start out, a lot of people have them installed first time. You get a very narrow view of the CarPlay on your
because
screen.
The screens are quite wide. Wide screens, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. And then it just needs a little bit of tinkering in the software to get it full screen, and then it looks brilliant. And then of course you've got access to all of your Apple stuff if you're an Apple fan. That's the thing.
Wow.
So that's kind of it in a nutshell, but it's just easy for me to, if you've got iTunes or any type of free music, as MP3 or FLAC files on your computer, and you're kind of into your music like I am, then I just download them onto a pen drive. And if you haven't done it already, I do recommend doing it. It's easy. And
I think that's probably easier than, because I currently try the either USB tethered with my iPhone or with Bluetooth, and it's sometimes a little hit and miss. And whether it pick everything up and things like that. It does generally work. The other thing I had when I first bought my car, there was like £4,000 worth of optional extras that somebody had obviously bought everything.
Wow.
Like all that. So I got like the servicing, and I got the music streaming service with it. And actually, I loved the music streaming service because it was, you literally just went out onto BMW's, I think it was Deezer, and you could find anything you wanted, and it would store it on the hard drive that's in the i3.
Great, that's right.
So that was really good. But right up to the point where the subscription was going to renew, and realised that it wasn't a monthly subscription of, say, iTunes, which is like £10 a month.
Yeah.
It was, we want something like £200 for the entire year. I was like, that's actually more per month than I would if I just used my phone.
Yeah. Right.
It's very strange.
I know. There's these things, and it's like this. You almost slightly touched on the second-hand market there. When you pick up a car, if it's more than 3 years old, nothing wrong with it in terms of its battery and its motor. I mean, it's just so different, different from fuel cars. 100,000 miles on an electric car is nothing.
Yeah, and you're not looking for whether the exhaust is falling off or.
No, exactly. There's none of those things that are going to go wrong with it. It's so little maintenance on it. But really, your point about these subscriptions, if you're not getting the navigation you think you're getting, like you can get this professional navigation that tells you where roads are blocked, and a bit like Waze, but without that interaction that Waze has. Where you don't see other drivers on the road. You just see a lot of red lines if you live where I live. Then you might have to renew a subscription to that. So you need to go to the Connected Drive website, BMW's Connected Drive website, and just obviously put your VIN number in and just check that you haven't, none of your subscriptions have run out, and that's the first port of call if things don't appear to be working properly. Failing that,
that's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, and failing that, there's the old switch it off and switch it on again, because it's a car's a big piece of software. So if anything,
the way I like whenever somebody that doesn't know about EVs asks me about them, I said it treat it like a mobile phone on wheels, because it's like, remember the first time you got a mobile phone, you didn't know what to do with it, you didn't know how it worked, but you eventually worked it out. And like we said earlier, you plugged it in overnight, and all that. Same principle, and it is very much, you take the motor and battery away, it's a carbon fiber shell, which is another plus for second-hand market. Rust isn't a problem.
No rust.
And it's a computer at the front, and that's it, really.
Great car. I mean, it's such a shame that they don't upgrade the batteries on them, because the actual body of the car itself, there's nothing. I can't see that ever wearing out.
No, I mean, I personally, and we've talked about this before. I love the i3.
Mm.
The doors, which we'll come on to in a little while, is a bone of contention. But the car itself is fantastic. So I know that it's possible as well. That battery case rack or whatever you want to call it underneath
Yeah,
is detachable within obviously in
yeah,
the
it
right
is.
hand and all the
Yeah.
rest of it. So there's no reason why that can't be swapped out for something
Well, I
higher.
wonder. I mean, I saw that. Kate and James's video on the swapping out the Nissan Leaf battery.
Yeah,
I'd
yeah,
love to see
absolutely.
that happen on an i3.
Be amazing, wouldn't it?
It would be great, and I'm sure it's doable just in the same way. I mean, there must be a little bit more complexity there because there's a water cooling system in there. But anyone who is a good engineer in that regard wouldn't have a problem with it. It might take a bit longer, of course. But let's say take a 60 amp hour i3. The second-hand market's got a load of those in it now, and people are still enjoying the drive on those. And people who bought them for the first time, and back in 2013, 2014, still got them. Great cars, it's absolutely brilliant. And just see if you could put a 94 amp hour or 120 amp hour battery in there. I really should talk about batteries in kilowatts rather than amp hours, but I think BMW drivers are familiar with the kind of the numbers on those. So that's why I talk about it in that regard.
Yeah, no, the BMW way, they like to be different to everyone else.
They do, yeah. It's true. That is true.
Imagine an i3, like a 2013 i3 with some Tesla cells in it.
Yeah, well, that'd be something else. Yeah, especially the new ones that are coming out soon.
So Cleveland Motors, if you're watching this, please do that because we'll both be very excited i3 owners.
I'd do that. I'd want to keep my my i3 and just put a bigger battery in it. It would just be such a waste of a perfectly good i3. I mean, as you say, a carbon fiber body. It's called the Life module, which sits on the Drive module. Drive module's got aluminium and so on in it, of course. But the Life module is great. And then, of course, on top of that, the cladding, which is the body of the car, it's all plastic. So I've never had a car park dent. Just
built to last.
Yeah, built to last. Yeah, great.
So we touched a little bit on earlier around the i3S in terms of the tires. What's the difference between let's take it the 120 amp hour one to the 120 amp hour S. So the i3 and the i3S. Batteries presumably are the same on both models?
Totally the same. Yeah, that's fine. It's just that the software has allowed the motor to receive a bit more horsepower. Don't know if actually the motor itself has been engineered differently, but I don't think it has. Or if it has, then it may have been to then move up into the iX3, which is obviously due to come out beginning of next year or sometime soon. So there's not a lot of difference really. Obviously, the main difference is it's a wider stance, and because of that, I don't think it has rear parking sensors.
Right,
Obviously, wider tires, different suspension, a firmer suspension.
Yeah, very low. It's
lowered. Yeah,
it feels lower, doesn't it?
It's lowered. I think it's not much. It's like I better not say so. I'm not actually sure. I think it's like 20 millimeters or something like that's lowered by.
Yeah.
And then of course it's got more settings in it. It's got the EcoPro Plus still. It's got EcoPro Comfort, but it has sport setting. And I think that's why I say there's a software thing there, because I think once that is on, then yes, your battery won't last as long, and you'll get all of the immediacy and you get in the acceleration. And I think the regen's slightly firmer as well. But I've only driven one once, so if anyone out there that has an i3S, perhaps they could just let us know in the comments.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I've driven one once and just noticed how much lower, how much more planted, and how much torquey the car is. I mean, and I was going from mine to an S. That's a bit of a big jump. If you're going from a 120 to a 120S, it's maybe not quite as a leap. But yeah, it was. We were going around Milton Keynes, and obviously, Milton Keynes, lots of sort of little roundabouts and stuff. Literally just stuck to the road, which was quite incredible.
Yeah, it's got a nicer, wider stance. Yeah, it's a great car. I see them around, and I just love the look of them. Just the kind of modelling at the front, it just looks really nice. There was something else I was going to mention about them as well. It's just escaped me.
That's all right. So you talked about like the look of them. So there's one particular look on the i3 that is a Marmite aspect. So that's the doors.
Right.
So me personally and my wife, they're now known as the Triangle of Doom. Now we absolutely love them, and I think they look amazing. Personally, I think they're completely impractical. So what do you
Right.
think? Feels
Yeah,
good or bad?
I've heard a lot of that. Now, of course, I think what you kind of have to do is kind of, well, I mean, obviously, a lot of people buy them and drive them, and that's great. But the i3 originally was designed as a city car,
Yes.
and it was designed for a little get around. And in fairness to BMW, a lot of people bought them as maybe their first car, not necessarily a second car, but they loved them so much they drove them everywhere and great distances, and it became their primary car. So these little foibles that look great in terms of design and the way the car was engineered and its life module. So there's no B pillar in between. It's showing off the amazing ability of this carbon fiber. It's obviously got a lot of people, scratching their heads and thinking this isn't not a great design. And I get that, because if you're in a very tight car park and you want to get your kids in the back, you kind of you have in your front door, and they've got to shuffle into the front door area before you can open the back door, and then they kind of go in again. So there's a little bit of problems with that. But I tend to park in the mother baby bays.
Yeah, so you have the space.
Yeah, you get a bit more space. Yeah. So I can open both doors wide, and and of course you can tip the front seats forward. There's a little sort of catch at the back of the head of the seat.
Yeah.
And you can then tip it forwards, and then it's just cavernous. You can just throw bags in and throw kids in, and if you've got the seats down, then if you're moving, then you've got access in that regard, take things in and out that way as well. I personally don't. I totally get what people are saying, and I have experienced that myself. But actually, I kind of like them. They kind of work well for me because of where I park, I suppose.
Yeah.
And if you've got a big enough driveway, or even if you're on street parking and you're not near a lamppost or something, they're easy to open and get into and use. But yeah, it's a funny one. I think some people love them and some people really just don't like them.
I love them. I like them because like it looks like a futuristic car, and that just adds to that kind of really cool looking car. And when you open, you're right, when you open them up and you haven't got distractions around you to sort of stop you opening them up, they do look amazing. And for putting kids in that way, they're great. I think the bit that like got me was I parked in a multi-story car park, which was my first mistake. And we'd parked next to a pillar.
All right.
Yeah. I get my child out the other side, no problem. But of course, somebody come along and parked next to me. I again. So yeah. I mean, I do love them and hate them. I think they're fantastic. I think they're amazing design. I think you do have to learn to live with them, probably more than you would just a normal.
Yeah, I think like I was saying earlier, people bear in mind that they buy them and they like them so much they run them as their primary car. And if you've got 3 kids, then you're in that's a problem because there's no middle seat.
Yeah.
Again, the i3 wasn't really designed with. I would say it obviously had passengers in the rear in mind because they built 2 seats in the back, but it was designed as a little city runaround car. But obviously, then BMW realised people love them so much that they just put bigger batteries in them, and they kept selling them. Of course, the bigger the battery that went in, the more sales they got. And if they ever did another battery upgrade and kept it going for another 5 or 10 years, who knows, that sounds like a long time, but that car will just keep selling. I see so many on the road now. I'm on the South Coast. I was just saying in a tweet maybe about a month ago or perhaps just 3 weeks ago, saying I see like 4 or 5 a day. I mean, I know it doesn't sound like many because there's tons of other cars out there, but just easily see them. Just drive down one road, they're there. You drive down another road, there's another 3. Drive down there,
I'm the same. I mean, I live in a small town in Hertfordshire, and I see at least 5, like in the local area, and like at one point I was the only one, but now like there is literally loads of EVs, which is obviously great to see, but like a lot of i3s, and I think that's because little, like you said, little towns and things like that. They're built for city sort of use predominantly.
Yeah.
But they can. So I mean that kind of brings us on to like the child seat sort of point, where obviously it's not built for if you've got a massive family, but actually if you've got a small family. I mean I've got one 5-year-old. I don't know how many
Just one.
children, just one. So actually for us, it works. I think we had the i3 probably just after she was born.
Cool.
So it's worked so far. I mean, obviously, as she gets bigger, that might change a little bit, but
Yeah.
or she might just not want to go with me at all.
Yeah, I've got a 12-year-old, and it's fine still.
Yeah, and so you can obviously has ISO fixes in the back, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Yeah. And of course, if you want your child in the front, there's a little where you in the fob. There's a little button on the top of the fob, and if you press that button and you pull on the keychain and hold the fob, a key will come out. Yes. And you can insert that key if you open the glove box into a little lock in there, and you can turn off your front passenger airbag. If you've got a child seat, not a seat, but like a little sort of carry child carry, what they're called.
I know what you're saying. I'm trying to think of it, but yeah, if you've got stuff in the front and you want to put them in the front, there is an ability to do that, isn't there?
Yeah, exactly. You put the seat belt around it and so on.
Yeah.
So you can turn your passenger airbag off that way. But of course, if you're not carrying children anymore, remember to turn the passenger airbag back on. I think there's a little warning that comes up on the display anyway, so that's there to remind you.
But yeah, I mean, it's easy to fit. I mean, I've done a video on my channel around like putting two child seats in, one recently, and it is very much two little catches, isn't there, on either side of the back seat. You've got the rods that come out the child seat. You push it in, click it in.
Yeah, just have a little fiddling around and play with it, and you'll get used to it eventually. And then there's another little trick. We're talking about the back seats. There's where there's a little cord. I think down by the door of the back seat. For the back seats, you take hold of that and you pull it, and as you pull it, you pull hold the back of the seat and pull it forwards. And that's how you lower the seats. Now, if you pull it and then only a little bit, and then pull the seat forwards and then let go, it will lock. And it's a funny little.
Gives you that extra little bit of.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah. You got it. So most people don't realise this, and I didn't realise this to start with, but the seats are angled back slightly. Yeah. Obviously for comfort for the passengers in the back. Now you can bring the seats upright and lock them, and what that does is that gives you a square boot. Which is
I did not know that at all.
Yeah, it's pretty useful because if you want to slide boxes in, they're kind of like the boxes are stopped by, and you end up with this kind of triangular gap at the back, which feels like wasted space. So just notch up the rear seats down to lay them flat, but notch them up. Passengers can still sit in the back, but they're more upright. Yeah. But then you've got this much more you've got that tiny little bit of space in the boot. Kind of good. You can push things back further.
So that to me so far, I think that's a great tip.
Just a little thing.
I did not know that because obviously, like everyone, you put it out, put the seats down, and obviously you get to use it. I didn't know there was that halfway point or that little.
It's not even halfway. It's just to get rid of that little triangle of useless space in the boot that you sometimes have if you put a box in.
It doesn't fit.
Shove an umbrella behind there, but you just need that extra room to close the boot. That's what it's meant really there for, to square up the back of the boot. That's all.
And the good thing is that leads us nicely on to point number 10, which is what can you actually fit in the boot now. Right. I'm guessing the boot is bigger than a Porsche Taycan.
I think it is. Yes.
I think it's bound to be something that they can get like an umbrella and a hat or something in the back of theirs. So
right.
I don't know that for definite. It's not fact. So chastise me all you want in the comments. But so I personally have put a 60-inch TV and flat screen in the back of the back of the i3. So what's the most you've got in the back of the boot?
Oh goodness! I did a trip to IKEA, and I don't think I ever took a photograph of it. I was just under pressure to get back, but I had a lot in the back. I had it stacked up to the roof, to the inside, and I had a couple of cushions to protect the rear windscreen. It can take a lot. It's got with the seats down. It's a 1,100 litre boot.
That's quite a lot,
It's
actually, really, isn't
massive.
it?
That's
Yeah.
really big. I mean, I don't know what an estate car would be. I'm just thinking of like an A6 Audi A6 Avant. What's a boot capacity in that? Not much more.
Yeah, maybe.
1600, maybe. I
Yeah,
don't know.
probably. And the fact that it's the car is like kind of shaped sort of
Yeah,
like that, but then there's no those central pillars aren't there, so you haven't got
yeah,
that extra bit of
yeah.
metal that sits there as well.
Very roomy inside because of that life module. It's opened
Mm.
up the inside, so you get this quite a big cavernous interior. And of course, the way the back of the car comes down, the boot doesn't come down, like the hatchback doesn't come down too far before it opens. It pretty much stays the height of the car when it
Yeah,
opens.
and then it slopes down right at the end, doesn't it?
Yeah, and the actual that's the aperture of the boot isn't tapered in so much that you can't get things in. It's pretty good. I mean, there is some tapering, of course, for the aerodynamics, and so, for example, if you wanted to take out your rear parcel shelf, I remember once I saw an older lady struggling with it in the car park, and I just kind of this is before COVID, and I went up to her and I said, look, it's just easy if you just lay it flat. Obviously, it's unhook it, lay it flat, and just pull it straight out towards you. And of course, there's none of that weird angles that people were trying to. I saw her pulling in and out on. So she was like,
There's all those little things. Isn't
yeah, yeah.
There's a lot of little things that you don't know. I mean, we found, like even with my boards are quite long sort of things to go in. But as soon as that side seat, even with Molly on the left hand side, like in the child seat, you get the other one down, just goes straight in.
Right, brilliant. Yes,
and it's deceiving because the first time you open the boot of an i3 and you look in the back and like you said with that slope, it doesn't actually look that massive.
Yeah.
But as soon as you get those back seats down, that is completely flat as well. So you'll pretty much got all the room.
Yeah, I mean, I get a whole week's shopping in the car.
Yeah, absolutely.
I never had a problem with it really. I mean, I'll take the parcel shelf out if I need to. I'm gonna get bikes in the back. I've got 2 mountain bikes in the back.
That's pretty good going.
Yeah, it's good going. Yeah, it's fine. I mean, just trying to think if there was anything else I managed to get in there. 60-inch television. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I was surprised that, and it was touch and go because it wasn't long after I bought the car, and I'd gone online. I saw a sale TV, and I was like, yeah, I'll have that. Click. Oh, is it going to fit? I've got no idea if this fits. So I went over there and thinking, right, I've done the measurements. But of course, you do the measurements of the TV, not the box around it.
Right.
And I got there, and this guy, you saw the guys come out, with the old trolleys with the TVs on. I'm like, I hope that's not mine because that definitely won't fit. And it was a 65, and I'm like,
right,
that's not that much difference. And he came out and he goes, "Where's your card?" I said, "It's that one." He goes, and he looked at me and went, "Are you serious?" I said, "Go on, let's give it a try." I literally pushed it all that would put all the seats back. I put my driver's seat a little bit further forward in order to get the most out of it. Yeah. Pushed it in and literally fitted with that much spare.
Brilliant.
It was literally like it shut, but only just.
And then when you shut it and he looked at you, was he like amazed or was he?
Yeah, he looked at me. It's like, I can't believe that's gone in there, and it's like,
great.
No, neither can I.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, it's like a TARDIS.
Visions of me getting on a bus with a 60-inch TV or something.
Yeah, right. Of course. Yeah, that's brilliant. I absolutely love it. I love that car to bits.
It's brilliant. So, well, that wraps up our 10 or more tips, which I think was fantastic. So thanks for that, James. That's been brilliant.
Cool, yeah.
I hear that you've got something exciting that you're working on as well. So
right. Oh, thank you. Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah, so I'm trying to develop an app with a friend of mine, and it's called electrictogether.com. And the idea behind this app is to help people find out all the right products that go with a particular car. And we're starting out by allowing owners to show which products they prefer and which ones they use with their car. And those products are energy providers, your insurance, your charge point, your home charge point, and maybe your preferred public charge point. Okay. And then there'll be more added on later, perhaps the possibility of having more customizable products on there. So if you have roof racks or certain cables that you have. And the idea behind it was to help new owners of electric cars figure out what they needed or what other owners were currently doing. And it was a shortcut really to allow people to see what other people in the market were doing. And it's this idea that you'll have confidence in the products that go with an EV if you see other people doing it. And I guess we came about this idea was because my friend was looking to buy an EV, and he kept asking me, what energy provider do you have? What home charge point do you use? What cable do I need? And I thought, wouldn't it be really good if we could just create like a profile page that you could share, and each of these products you would put if you had a referral code for any of the products, you could put them in, any discounts that you knew of, and then you could share that link with your friend or just share it across the across social media, and then people could see your setup, how you set up your EV and what you use. And then if they clicked on any of the products in there, they'd be able to redeem your referral code. And of course, you get something for it, they get something for it. But they ultimately get this shortcut in the know-how of an i3 driver. For example, if you select your i3 car and then the products, if you have a Tesla, you select the Tesla and then you select all your Tesla products, including your Tesla referral code, and just share it around. And it has we had a dashboard that we built into it to allow people to see how many views they've had, how many clicks on their referral codes they've had, and they're able to create a unique username as well. So it'd be electrictogether.com/i3Guide or EVside, and just share that about. So we're sort of in the process of continued development with that, but it's up and running if anyone wants to go and try it. It's electrictogether.com, and it'd be nice to see that floating around.
Absolutely. I mean, everyone give it a go. Let James know what you think of it as well. Feedback's always good for
these that's really good, useful for me. Yeah,
sounds fantastic. Like it's almost like I don't want to say social media for EVs, but it's like I said, it's bringing all that experience of people that already drive EVs to the people that maybe don't and don't know.
Yeah, just shortcut to all the questions that people have about a particular car. Yeah,
fantastic. Well, be sure to check that out, everyone. I think that'll do us for today, and we're going to wrap up now. So James, appreciate your time. Thank you very much for joining. For you guys out there, thank you very much. If you made it to the end of the video, I appreciate you even more. Be sure to check out Patreon, click a like, click a share this video, click the subscribe button, all the normal stuff, and check out the other videos on my channel. There is a good one with me and James that we talk, I think it was last year, in a pouring rain car park in an i3, because we do all the glamorous videos wherever we go. But until next time, thank you very much for watching, everyone. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye.